Okay, so today is the last class assigned to me for fourth semester, and in my previous class, am I audible, Pijus?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so
So,
Yes, sir.
okay, the turn off your microphones. So this is the last class, and today I will take up another topic from Old Man and the Sea. And as I have told that uh, the topic is the imagery and symbolisms and some of the biblical associations and the religious associations of Old Man and the Sea with Bible. So while discussing imageries and symbols, automatically the religious concepts, the allegorical concepts, the association of this novel with parable, all these things will come up. So let us start our discussion today, and if some other classes will be allotted later on by the department or our respected ma'am, then we will discuss some more topics. In my yester class, I have discussed the character of Santiago and the association, biblical association with his character. Today I will discuss some of the imageries. So before proceeding the imageries and symbols, let us know what imagery exactly is. So you all have the concept of imageries and symbolisms, but still I want to say something about that. Someone is waiting. Deep Pandey. So what is the difference between imagery and symbolism? So you all know that from your undergraduate course you have been dealing with images and symbolisms in several poems, in dramas, as well as novels, stories, everywhere. So these are very common thing in literature. So what is imagery? Imagery refers to the use of vivid and descriptive language to the depth of the writing. Imagery refers to the use of vivid and descriptive language to the depth of the writing. And what is symbolism? Symbolism refers to the imbuement of object with a certain meaning that is different from their original meaning or function. So imagery refers to a vivid use of a particular descriptive language, whereas symbolism is a kind of which bears a different meaning from its original object, or from the original object with which the comparison is being made. And the second difference is imagery creates mental images in the reader's mind, and symbolism expresses a hidden meaning in words. So and the third difference is imagery appeals to the five senses. We have got five senses, so imagery appeals to the five senses, and symbolism appeals to our intellect. That means it directly goes into our brain. We have to analyze the symbols through the working of our intellect, and imagery is direct and appealing to our five senses. So these are the basic differences between imagery and symbols. Now you all know what is the function of images and symbols in a particular literary text. So in literature, when a character or object or idea becomes powerfully associated with a particular set of connotations or possible significances which extend beyond the limits imposed by simple representation, depiction or exposition. Suppose the character, an object, or an idea is usually described as an image. So the thing becomes more than the thing itself. It becomes a bearer of meanings. At a second stage, when a particular image is repeated with similar connotations, it takes on the characteristics of a motif. So we generally found this particular term motif in our discussion of different literary texts. So what is a motif? Motif is a recurrent use of a particular image, that is called motif. So particular image is being repeated with similar connotations. The connotations will be similar, and that particular image is being repeated in the text again and again, then it becomes a motif. So when the correspondence between the image and its connotations is most clearly defined, the images become a symbol. So when an image becomes a symbol, when its connotation is most clearly defined, then it turns into a symbol. So, the use of imagery is an important technique for the writer. For any writer, this particular technique is really an important thing, and in literature, we generally found this kind of images and symbol. So, here also in this particular novel by Hemingway, Old Man and the Sea, we have various groups of images that combine to make a novel of evocative narrative. So the narrative becomes much more evocative through the use of particular images and symbols. So the first image that I want to discuss is the image of boy. You have your pens and pencils and as well as notebook. Please write down something, a little bit of points that I will tell you. The first point is the boy. The first image that I want to discuss is the image of boy. So, who is the boy? You all know. You have read the text as I. You have read the text as I assume that the Manolin is the boy. Manolin helps to affirm one of the themes of the novel. So, what is the theme of the novel? The theme is the problem of age. The problem of aging is one of the themes of the novel. So here the Manolin affirms to one of the themes of the novel, that is the aging of the human being, or the problem of age, senility. So, given the view of the man that Hemingway seems to present, the protagonist is faced with the problem of demonstrating his essential manhood as a period of his life when his physical powers are wanting and the resources of his resolves are questionable. So, in Santiago, while discussing Santiago in my previous class, I have discussed that the physical powers of an aged person is being discussed throughout the novel. So Santiago represents the senility, the problem of age, and Hemingway particularly represent this physical power and the wanting of resources of his resolve, and this particular thing is questionable here in this novel. Yet we must prove himself. Yet Okay, so aging is one of the main themes, and it is being represented by Santiago. And this particular boy Manolin is also one of the images by which the main theme, the problem of age, is being corroborated by the novelist Hemingway. So it also represents it also represents, that means the boy also represents youthful vigor and courage. the youth, the potential youthfulness, and the vigor. Vigor means strength, power, and the courage, the braveness. So it is the youthfulness, vigor, and courage that is being represented by this particular boy, Manolin. And it would be easier and more comfortable in such circumstances to devote oneself to contented recollection of past glories. So there is a binary contrast between the young boy and the old man. The old man Santiago is being contrasted with the young boy Manolin. So why? Because it is the recollection. It is the recollection of the past glories, and one is always contented with the recollection of the past things, that we always remember what we had, or how did we celebrate our childhood days. So it is a kind of past glories, recollection of the past glories. And the image of lion may in part convey the seductive enchantment of such a response. So Hemingway hero, I have already discussed in my earlier class, the code hero and Hemingway hero. Hemingway hero, such a response is impossible. Such a response is impossible. So it is impossible because it is a betrayal of all that it means to be a man. So Santiago, tempted by thoughts of tranquil recollection, is aroused continually by the image of Manolin. The boy is the representation of all the youthful powers and the old man can find within himself. So old man is recapitulating the bygone days and how it was when he was a child. This particular recollection comes into his head, and Santiago is tempted by this particular thought of tranquil and recollection. And it is the image of Manolin that comes creeping into the mind of that old man Santiago again and again. So it is man is not an external or physical bearing alone. So it is by virtue of inner qualities Manolin revives the inner powers. So Santiago is already aged, so he has nothing to gain more. But he is recapitulating, he is recollecting the days of his childhood or days of his past. So while going to the that particular area, recollecting the childhood days, he has gained a kind of strength, inner strength within himself. So how to live the rest of the life. So this is the image. This is the symbol by which Hemingway expressed that the problem of age can be subsided. So it is not the external or physical thing alone, it is the virtue of inner qualities, a kind of quality that we ingrained within us, আমাদের ভেতরে থাকে, it comes from within. So Manolin revives the inner power of the old man Santiago. In simple language we can say that Manolin revives the inner power, the inner strength of that old man Santiago. And second, the image of Manolin recurring powerfully and insistently, so that the image becomes a motif. As I have already told, that when an image comes again and again with the same connotation in the text, then it becomes a motif. So here also the image of Manolin has become a motif, and it contributes significantly to the structure of the novel. It contributes significantly to the structure of the novel. How? Because the contribution is twofold. On the one hand, it is a contribution in terms of action. Manolin triggers Santiago's resolve, and thereby he is able to do those things which are necessary to defeat the great Merlin. So power, the power of the youth is being ingrained by the old man, and he becomes significantly much more stronger in nature from within. So whenever he thinks that there is a so Manolin plays an important part in the rhythmic structure of the novel. So one thing that Manolin triggers the necessary input to defeat the age, to defeat the adversity that is being ingrained by Merlin, and the second one is it contributes to the rhythmic structure of the novel. So, as has been discussed earlier in my previous class, the boy also has a significant role to play on the ebb and flow of the action of the central portion of the novel, The Old Man and the Sea. So this is the first image. This is the first image that I want to explain. I think you have got a clear conception of the image of the boy Manolin, and the significance of this particular image in association with the old man, as well as the rhythmic structure of the novel. Next image that comes, you write down the second one, is the lion. Is the lions. So what is the significance of this particular image? So the image of boy is the part of the youth and old age theme of the novel, as I have discussed. Their appearance signals the seductive nostalgia of the old man as he drifts into sleep. So emanates a kind of nostalgic feeling in the mind of Santiago, and this particular nostalgia comes when he becomes asleep. So always appearing at night, this kind of dream, this kind of nostalgia comes in the sleep when he sleeps at night. So in dream they appear, and on the beach in the evening. So they are symbolic in Santiago's thoughts, for he is at the evening of his life. So Santiago is almost on the verge of death, on the verge of death, because he has already grown old, and has really enjoyed the life throughout his career. So at this particular time, when his death is approaching, so he expresses a wistful yearning for the vigor and splendor, and that vigor and splendor is being imbued by that particular boy Manoli. So even this function, though may not be wholly passive, they are not in these moments only nostalgia. So if we cannot categorize it only pure nostalgia, এটাকে শুধু নস্টালজিয়া বললে চলবে না. For the lions also indicate the underlying hope and confidence within a man. So lion is the symbol of power, lion is the symbol of potency, lion is the symbol of strength. So it is not only nostalgia alone. So lion indicates an underlying hope and confidence, a kind of strength, a kind of power that is being imbued within Santiago's physique. So it's being reflected by Hemingway here by that particular image of lion. So lion is indicative of hope, confidence, etc. So the image does not die or wane, and thus may also represent the very real presence or resources upon which the old man can still draw. So this is the first aspect of the lion. The first aspect is means the it indicative of underlying hope, strength, power, confidence. This is the image. And the second interpretation is that the lions from part of the rhythmic structure of that particular novel also, as the boy Manolin also contributes to the rhythmic structure of the novel. Here also the lion also contributes to the rhythmic structure of the novel, as the tide of the action shifts and moves. So the references to the lions create a kind of tempo which alternates with what we created by the Merlin's accents and by Santiago's recollections of Manolin. So the temporal flow, the flow between time and space is also categorically similar with the spirit of the novel, with the rhythmic structure of the novel, and that particular rhythmic structure is brought by two images. One image, as I have already discussed, the boy Manolin, and the second one is the lion. So the second image is being described. Now come to the third one, is the religious imagery. That is the most important thing, and the only question or only aspect that comes into our mind is the corroboration, or is the comparison between a religious text and this particular novel, Old Man and the Sea. So questions may come in different languages. Discuss Old Man and the Sea as a religious text, or as an allegory, or as a parable, or unearth the religious association of Hemingway's Old Man and the Sea with Bible. So whatever the question may come, you have to analyze the religious imagery perfectly, and this is the most important aspect. This is the most important thing that you need to know, and you have to analyze it perfectly. And after discussing the religious imagery, I will discuss some psychological symbolisms also. So it's a big one. Please bear with me. And point is the religious imagery. So most it is most obvious that as I have already discussed in my previous class, that there is a parallelism, there is a parallel between Santiago and Christ. So Santiago and Christ had a parallelism, and that particular aspect is the religious imagery. We have to discuss it clearly. The old man exhibits many of the qualities which are usually regarded Christ-like. So there are several qualities that can be compared with the qualities of Christ. So what are they? His powerful conviction, which is frequently expressed as faith and pride. A powerful conviction was there, and that conviction of that old man Santiago is being expressed by the faith and pride. And then comes the humility. I have talked about humility in my previous class at length, so you can gather those things from there. So humility is another thing, and faith and pride are the other two things. So more striking still, however, is the parallel between the sufferings of Santiago and the sufferings of the Christ. I have discussed elaborately that day the sufferings of the Christ and the suffering of the particular old man Santiago. So Santiago here wrestles with the feast, with suffering physically as well as spiritually. There are two kinds of sufferings. One is physical suffering, another is psychological suffering. So his left hand is rendered useless by cramp, and his right hand is being torn by the line. So line means fishing line, by which we catch fishes. So the right hand is being torn by the fishing line, and the left hand is being rendered useless by the cramp. So his back is bruised by the rope which is braced around the shoulders. So these injuries are reminiscent of the experiences of Jesus Christ. So who is scourged and nailed throughout hands and on the cross. So these injuries, the back injuries, the two hand, right hand injury and left hand injuries, so these corroborate, and these also reminiscent of the experiences of Jesus Christ when he was put to scourge, when he was put to nail, when he was nailed on the cross. So a pair of menacing sark is also cited, and correspondence between the closer as well as the passage. I can quote a passage from the text where it is clearly said, just listen to the passage: there is no translation of this word, and perhaps it is just a noise such as a man might make involuntarily, feeling the nail go through his hands and into the woods. So there is no translation for this word, and perhaps it is just a noise such as a man might make involuntarily, feeling the nail go through the hands and into the wood. Okay, feeling the nail, particularly nail is the Christian symbol. It bears biblical connotation. The nail with which Jesus was crucified. So nail go through the hands and into the wood. Wood means here the cross that is being made by the wood. So this particular passage from the text can corroborate to the symbol of religious imagery. So here again, cross on which Jesus gave a cry, which is interpreted in various ways. When he was nailed, Jesus was nailed, he gave a cry. And this parallel is equally evident at the end of the novel also. So when we come close to the end of this particular novel, Old Man and the Sea, we find that there is a parallelism between this cry of Jesus Christ and the words uttered by Santiago. So Santiago arrives at the harbor late at night, and he shouldered the mast and started to climb. Shouldered the mast. The mast is the long pole like things that is being attached in the boat, sailing boat. So he shouldered the mast and started to climb. So he also knew the depth of his tiredness. He also he was totally exhausted, not only tired but totally exhausted. And just as he's soldering his cross, the Jesus Christ, when Jesus was soldering his cross, so there is an analogy between soldering of the cross of the Jesus and the soldering of the mast of Hemingway's hero. So Hemingway's hero Santiago. So the depth of his tiredness, just as in the soldering of his cross, Jesus must have known the bitter depth of the experiences after a night in interrogation and punishment. So as the old man climbed to his sack, he stumbled and fell 7 times in all. And I am coming later on. 7 is also a symbol. So even as Jesus stumbled in tying his cross, so carrying his cross, when Santiago reached home at last, he found a water bottle and took a drink. So after reaching the harbor, Santiago found a water bottle and took a drink. If you go to the in-depth study of the novel, you will find there the reference is being made there. So he took the water bottle and took it and just gulped a little bit of drink from that bottle. So Christ was also on the cross when he was given a drink. So it is known to all of us that when Christ was on the cross, he was given a kind of drink. So there is an also analogy between this drinking of water from the bottle by Santiago and drinking of a liquid which was given by the traitors to Jesus Christ. So, totally exhausted, the old man pulled the blanket over his shoulder and then over his back and legs, and he slept face down on the newspaper with his arms out straight and palms on his hands up. Palms. This palm is also symbolical and has an association with Christ's palm. So Santiago's final pose is that of the crucified man. So the way Santiago slept, how did he sleep? How did he sleep? So how so Santiago's posture of sleep is being compared with the posture of crucifixion of Jesus Christ on the cross. So this is another analogy. This is another comparison. So again, the evidence we get from Santiago and Christ is interpreted being as the religious allegory. Totally, this particular novel is a religious allegory, and in which Santiago is the symbol of Christ. So, while writing this image or explaining this image, you have to make clear points of these things which I have just mentioned. And again, if the question comes that discuss this particular novel as an allegory or as a religious text or parallels between Bible and Pullman and the Sea, or Christ of the symbol of Christ, you have to mention all these things very clearly and neatly by citing some examples from the text also. So there is uh, so now come to the some other religious images, like the parallels in the religious images moves towards two other accomplishments. So there are two other significance of these religious imageries. That is, the first one, on one hand, the religious imagery contributes to the artistic effect of the novel. So it is not only a sheer mention, it has got some connotations to contribute an artistic effect into the text. and the style is reminiscence of the biblical parables. যেটা আমি বললাম, the thing that I have already mentioned, that this text may be interpreted as a parable. So while interpreting the answer, you have to write down clearly the comparisons, the analogies between Christ and the hero Santiago. So it is reminiscence of the biblical parables. So on the second level, the evocation of experience of Christ, the evocation of Christ enables Hemingway to emphasize the heroic mold in which Santiago is cast. Heroic mold in which Santiago is cast. So Santiago's character is being cast on a heroic platform, on a heroic level. He has shown he is shown as a very heroic character. So what are the qualities that attributed that particular heroism? These are conviction, resolution, and stoicism. So conviction is there, resolution is there, and stoicism is there. What is stoicism? Stoicism is the endurance, the power of endurance that we can bear with the circumstances. You have read Riders to the Sea, James Singh's Riders to the Sea. Some of you have read, those who were in Bardhaman University or uh, other universities. There this particular text was there. So you know the stoicism of Moria, the main protagonist of that particular one act play. Here also we see the stoicism of Santiago, the resolution of Santiago, and the conviction with which he fought to the last. So these are the categories, these are the attributes by which we can make a clear comparison between Christ and the hero, the code hero of Hemingway, Santiago. So the numbers also 7, I have told a little ago that 7 is a 7 has got a biblical allusion or biblical bearing. So numbers means 1, 2, 3, 4. These numbers have also got some sort of religious imagery. So in that particular text which I just mentioned, since Riders to the Sea, there we found some numbers, and those numbers were associated with the biblical connotation. Similarly, here also in this text we have got some numbers, and these numbers also have got some biblical connotations. So how can we interpret these things? So, let us start with some of the numbers. Suppose 3, 4, 7, and 40. These are the 4 numbers which were mentioned in this particular text, and they have got some sacred significances. So how is it? For example, 3 was a sacred number in early Babylonian religion cults and appears in the New Testament in the concept of the Trinity. The concept of Trinity, it shows the significance of 3 as a number, as a sacred number, and it is being mentioned in Babylonian religious cult, and it appears in the New Testament also. So this 3 and 4 is also a symbol of perfection, though its pictorial representation as a square. 4, it represents a square, so it has got an association with a particular Hebrew god. The name of the god is Yahweh. Yahweh. YHWH. It is pronounced like Yahweh. 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 So it is it has got an association with that particular Hebrew god. It has got 4 letters in the name, and then again the 7. Just a little ago I mentioned 7 has got a biblical association. So 7 is probably the most common of Hebrew sacred numbers, and it appears best known the concept of creation being completed on the 7th day. So 7th day, the completion of the creation, that the world is being created as per biblical biblical interpretation. The world is being created in 7 days. So the creation is being completed on the seventh day, and the last number that is mentioned in this text is the number 40, 40, Forty, 40, 40. So it is mentioned as the time that Moses spent leading the Jews through the Sinai, and also as the period of time during which Jesus fought temptation in the wilderness. So 40 has got two interpretations. One is mentioned at the time that Moses spent leading the Jews through the Sinai, and again the period of time during which Jesus fought temptation in the wilderness. So these are of course more sacred numbers which has got special significance for ancient people. So the four which have already I mentioned, 3, 4, 7, and 40, are stressed here because they are found in this particular text, Hemingway's Old Man and the Sea. And Santiago's contest with the great Merlin lasted for 3 days. Santiago fought with that particular great Merlin for 3 days. So three has got synonymous with this biblical association. So grueling experience, the old man has feast for 40 days in the company of Manolin. Again, we have got a reference of old man's 40 days association with Manolin, and his accompaniment with Manolin to feast in the sea without any success. So he has also fished since then without success for 44 more days. The number 7 is involved in three critical incidents. The great Merlin, from the moment of grasping the hook to the moment of his last desperate jump, challenges the fishermen 7 times. So Santiago kills 7 sharks. Santiago killed 7 sharks, and from the harbor to the floor of his sack, the old man is forced to lay down the most of the skip 7 times. So 7 has come repeatedly. 7 sharks, 7 times the skip was down, forced to lay down. As these numbers have no significance in themselves or any significance of an absolute sort, but they do have a motive which, like the parallel between Santiago and Christ, emphasize a parable like quality of the narrative as well as it associates with the biblical qualities. So in general, if we find these numbers 4, 3, 7, and 40, they have got no special meanings, but when we associate these numbers with the biblical association or biblical qualities or the parable like qualities, then we will get the significance of the Christian imagery. So the Christian imagery, the religious imagery, I have discussed elaborately. Now the next one is the ocean and the Merlin. The ocean and the Merlin. So after discussing a little bit, then we will go to the psychological symbolism and end our discussion today. So you have to prepare this particular assessment or this particular theme of the novel, or the question, the answer, by citing some texts, the references, some passages from the text. Otherwise your answer, otherwise your preparation would not be completed. So the ocean and the Merlin will be our next image that I will discuss right now. So the relationship between Santiago and Merlin is more than between the hunter and the hunted. The relationship between Santiago and the Merlin is more than between the hunter and the hunted, between the pursuer and the pursued. So if we give a very careful reading of the text, then the chase section of the book reveals shifts of developments in the relationship which are at once intriguing and significant. So at the as the old man begins his quest for the 85th day, his feeling is probably best expressed in the words of Manolin. What Manolin told, I quote from the text: "It is what a man must do. It is what a man must do." So man must not succumb to the circumstances. he needs to fight, he needs to give a kind of resentment, he needs to put a fight. So here also it is being stressed by Merlin that it is what a man must do. So if he is a man, he have to do this kind of thing. So thus when Santiago first books the feast, his thoughts reflect only his attitude of acceptance. The situation is familiar and inevitable, and he feels no emotion other than hopeful expectations as he watches his prey to take the hook, make another turn. Just smell them. Aren't they lovely? These are the lines from the text. Eat them, grow now, and then there is the tuna, hard and cold and lonely. Don't be shy. Fish, eat them. His thoughts and emotions are concentrated solely upon the act that must be performed. So eat it so that the point of the hook goes into your heart and kills you. So eating the bait, it goes into goes within, and then it will hang there. It will put on the heart, and so come up easy and let me put the harpoon into you. All right, are you ready? Have you been long enough at table? No, now, he said aloud and struck hard with both hands, rained a yard of line, and then struck again and again, swinging with each arm alternatively on the cord with the strength of his arms and the pivoted weight of his body. You will get all these passages in the text. So when he fails to master the fees immediately, when Santiago fails to master the fees, it begins to tow his skiff. Towing means going hither and there. The skiff, the small boat with which Santiago went out to have his fishing. So Santiago begins to think in terms different from those suggested by the relationship between hunter and hunted. How now longs to see the feast, to know that what I have against me, and he recognizes the equality inherent in the encounter. I can do nothing with him, and he can do nothing with me. So there is a very large passage which I don't want to read because it will waste our time. You can read the text at home. So there you will find the how Santiago feels pity for the Merlin and speculates about the nature. So uh, I am skipping that particular passage and then goes to the next point. The development is increasingly clear as the novel unfolds, as the novel passes by. So we will develop a kind of clear understanding of the development of the novel. So the fish and he, Santiago, reflects are beyond all people in the world. They are joined together. Beyond all people of the world, they are joined together. These phrases are from the text, joined together, and there is no one to help either one of us. Let us resolve to stay with the feast until death, but adds, he will stay with me too, I suppose. When the sun rises further, Santiago expresses the bond between the feast and himself even more strongly. I love you and respect you very much. When the feast lurches, the old man affirms the unity of the suffering. You are feeling it now, feast, and so God knows am I. Thus he is able to express a desire which is strange for a hunter. I wish I could feed the fish. He is my brother. So when the Merlin rises from the ocean, the implications of the contest becomes clear. It is no ordinary fish. The old man had seen many great fish, but this was the biggest fish that he had ever seen and the biggest that he had ever heard of. So this is the passage from the text. From this moment on, the contest is more than ordinary. Santiago signals the change by his impatience with his crumpled left hand. He is irritated with his hand, not because it robs him of his strength, but because such as impairment is unworthy of the battle. Further, the battle is interpreted as a demand from Santiago is to prove to his manhood. I wish I could show him what sort of man I am. The climax of this stage of development is the relationship is reached when Santiago dismisses thoughts of commercial value of Merlin and affirms the noble nature of his adversary. There is no one. I quote from the quote an important line from the text. There is no one worthy of eating him from the manner of his behavior and his great dignity. So from this moment onward, the man and the fish drew closer. So they are not being hunted and hunted. They become quite close, like brother, a kind of brotherhood. There is one spirit. So they are one in conflict, and the conflict that noble will must wage as their preordained task in the universe. So another small passage I want to read from the text is, "You are killing me, fish," the old man thought, "but you have a right to. Never have I seen a greater or more beautiful or a calmer or more noble things than you, brother." So, particular word, see the particular word brother, use of the word brother. Come on and kill me. I do not care who kills you. So, this particular word, brotherhood, a kind of a keenness, a kind of relationship that grows between the hunter and the hunted. So this is the image that you have to discuss while keeping in mind to prepare the answer, to prepare the topic. So these are the main points that I have given you, and now I would like to discuss a little bit, because it is already 10, so I have to wind up within 10 or 15 minutes. And before that, I want to talk something about the psychological symbolism, psychological association of this particular text. So uh, I read from one celebrated critic's comment. So there have been many attempts to read Freudian and Jungian meanings into Hemingway's fiction. The psychoanalytical methods throw new light on the certain situations and reveal certain meanings, though it could be sometimes stretched too far. Psychological symbolism in a work of art is the critic's concern rather than the writer's, and for it involves the writer's unconscious as well as the characters, and the writer is generally not conscious of it when he uses it, and the conscious or the unconscious, he is sometimes caught in his own trap, for the critic may prove the writer's unconscious as well. So psychological symbolism is not associated with the writer, but it is mainly associated with the critics. So critics will unearth this kind of psychological association of a particular text. So in this particular novel, Old Man and the Sea, the Santiago's phallic harpoon penetrates the Merlin so deep that it fills the Merlin's heart. He does not merely kill, but achieves a union beyond sex and identifies himself with the fish. So in some of his previous novels, Hemingway also mentioned some associations of psychological bearing, psychological imageries. Here also in this particular text, we find an association, psychological association of Santiago's phallic harpoon. Harpoon is being shown as a phallic weapon, and that phallic weapon will penetrate deep into the body of Merlin, Merlin, and it has got an association of unition, a kind of achievement of union between sexes, and identifies himself with the fish. So this is another interpretation that I have got from a critic. And then in if I say Old Man and the Sea are interpreted as a womb symbol indicating a desire for regression into the womb, with the sea being referred to as a lamar or the eternal feminine sea. In my previous class I have also mentioned that sea is here eternal feminine. Sea is being shown as femininity is attributed to the sea. So here the critic has also told that Old Man and the Sea are interpreted as symbol, WOMB, symbol, indicating a desire of regression into the with the sea being referred as Lamar, L-A-La, M-A-R, Lamar, or that means the eternal feminine sea. So all Rofit advances this interpretation. All this kind of interpretations, it is difficult to understand what cannot be considered a symbol. John Killinger calls the sea a primordial symbol. The name of the critic is John Killinger, K-I-L-L-I-N-G, Killinger, who calls the sea a primordial symbol. Quotation within quotation, write down the phrase a primordial, P-R-I-M-O-R-D-I-L, primordial W-O-M-B, symbol, primordial symbol. So, to make the vast, limitless ocean a symbol is to stress psychoanalysis bearings of psychoanalysis association. So, psychoanalytic criticism is a slippery, very slippery playground, and through the kind of interpretations is quite possible and could be reasonable to some extent. The symbols attribute to the writer may be outside of the pale of his conscious technique. The critics, however, can throw light on the writer's unconscious, and by discerning new meanings can enjoy themselves and enlighten others. So psychological associations are not being represented by the author, represented by the novelist. It is the manifestation of the different interpretations that are being carried away by different critics. So psychological associations of this particular text enlighten others, and there is a job of reconstruction of the writer's vision, and they may sometimes see more than the creative writer. So this kind of interpretation, when we get, then we will decipher other meanings, other layers of meanings, except the clear, plain, level meaning of the text. So psychological interpretations, psychological symbolisms are also very important, and you can give some references from other texts also, like A Farewell to Arms, or his the first one, The Sun Also Rises. From there you can also cite some instances of psychological associations or psychological symbolisms, and these symbolisms will corroborate to the view that a new layer of meaning can be unearthed from this particular text. So these are the some things which I need to tell today, because we we are concerned with the symbols and images of Old Man and the Sea. So I hope you have all enjoyed today's discussion, and let us talk something else regarding this text. I think you will be benefited from today's discussion of symbolism. That is really a good uh, topic to be discussed at length, but within 1 hour I could have completed the main points. But now you read the text, and you get some references from online resources, and compile your thoughts and feelings after reading the text. You can get some of your own interpretation, some of your own thinking, some of your own kind of judgment, rational thinking after reading the text. So a literary text is always enjoyable if you read the text at home, and not only one time, but at least 2 or 3 times, and then and only then you will understand that meanings are cropping forth. So with this request, I wind up today's class, today's lecture. uh, mm, If you have any question, queries, suggestions, whatever you have, you may ask me in my personal inbox. So please put on your cameras on. So I am winding up today's class here. I don't know when we will see you again. If new routines will come up, then we will have some discussions with some other topics. Before that, I request you, earnestly requesting you again and again to read the text at home. Any text, not only this text, but you have to read the text. Literation can only be interpreted if you read each and every text, whether it is poetry or whether it is drama, novel, short story. You have to read the text again and again. So thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.